James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this aeroplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. What do you say on a Monday morning? Here we go with another Bill Press show. Good to have you with us. Hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the issues of the day. There's a lot going on. Secretary of State John Kerry has arrived in Baghdad, a surprise visit, not announced ahead of time. He was in the region, so it's no big surprise. But he is there reportedly to put some pressure on Nouri al-Maliki and to let people know that we would welcome a new prime minister, somebody who would actually move to build a coalition government in Iraq, which al-Maliki has not done, has refused to do. Meanwhile, the New York Times this morning, in its lead story, reports that most observers say there is no way the Iraqi army can recover and take back the land that it lost to the Sunni militants. Yesterday, the World Cups continues to be one of the most exciting sports events ever. USA last night. What a heartbreaker. Just when it looked like we were going to beat Portugal 2-1 and move into the finals. That last-minute goal. It was a tie game. That means the USA is still alive, however, and will still advance. I think Germany may be next. Today in Washington, a big White House summit on working families, including speeches by the president, the first lady, the vice president, and Dr. Jill Biden. All four superstars of the administration will be there at that summit here in Washington. And in Mississippi tomorrow, the Tea Party challenger Chris McDaniel in the runoff against incumbent Senator Thad Cochran to see whether or not the Tea Party is still alive and able to capture a Senate seat in Mississippi. All of that and more coming up. And, of course, your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS, Monday edition of the Bill Press Show. Welcome.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Kerry is in Baghdad. Just arrived, a surprise visit? Maybe. He'll leave there with a new prime minister in charge. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. It is Monday, June 23rd. How about it? So good to see you today. Hope you had a great weekend. Got a lot done or got nothing done. That's the best kind of weekend, when you get nothing done. Just kick back, relax, recharge your batteries, and get ready to join us for a fast-paced show today here over the hopscotching over the big stories of the day. Here in Washington, D.C., around the nation and around the globe. We're here in Washington on Capitol Hill, and our studio just down the street from the United States Capitol building, keeping our eye on all of the above, telling you what's going on, and taking your calls and your comments to find out what it all means to you, what you think about it all. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. All of our good friends on your local progressive talk radio station, thank you for being there with us, or listening on the TuneIn app. Don't forget, it's free. Just download it if you haven't already done so. Tune in, go to the Progressive Voices channel, and there we are. So you can give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And don't forget, in addition to being there with you on your local radio station, we are there with you on Free Speech TV all across this great land of ours and all around the globe on youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Yes, even in Portugal, where they must be feeling pretty good today because, oh boy, they almost got their butt kicked yesterday. Well, they did get their butt kicked, but didn't get it kicked enough.
They got their butt kicked all the way to a draw.
Anyhow, here we go with our team this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Look who's back. Alicia Cruz is back here on the job there to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, as always, our videographer, right on the scene. So I want you to know that part of my duty here, right, as host, is every once in a while I have to go up to New York to see a couple of Broadway shows to let you all know what's worth seeing.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's,
absolutely.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
So I have volunteered for this duty.
Thanp you very much. Appreciate it.
I just want you to know. And I saw Carol and I went up this weekend, saw two phenomenal shows. A couple of months ago, I saw I've talked about a lot, the Bryan Cranston in All the Way, the play about LBJ, which is so great, and won the Tony for the best drama of the year on Broadway, and it's worth a special trip to New York just to see it. This weekend, Friday night, we saw the best musical, the musical that won the Tony for the best musical of the year, called A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and it is just phenomenal. It's just really very funny, very well done, very clever. Just so cleverly staged. It's just
nice.
Yeah, it's a great, great evening. A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. It's going to be on Broadway for a long time if you have a chance to get to New York and to see it. I mean, New York is New York is fun. It's crazy, but it's fun.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Times Square is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, every time I go there, just blown away. But the billboards they're not billboards anymore. They're buildings. Entire buildings, all, lit up and great scenes. And then the people just you can't even move. But then Saturday night we saw, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. It's worth a trip. Saturday night, a very good friend of ours, Jim Dale. Jim Dale you probably know Jim Dale as the voice of Harry Potter. He is the man who recorded all 7 Harry Potter books.
Oh, really?
He won 2 Grammys for recording those books.
He's been on the show before.
He's been on this show.
Yeah.
He did all the voices in all of those books. 234 different voices.
Wow.
They're all
unbelievable.
They're all him. They're all him.
Holy cow.
And each one is different, of course, and he makes them up. And so from little kids to older women to, Harry Potter.
How fun.
So he's just an incredible talent. He started out he has a one-man show on Broadway is what I'm getting up to, called Just Jim Dale. And it's Jim. It's an hour and a half long. We had dinner with him ahead of time, and we had drinks in his dressing room afterwards. So
nice.
And we saw the show in between. And it's a wonderful, warm show. It's all about his life as a comedian, actor, singer, dancer. He started out in doing music halls in England when he was 7 years old. And he just tells kind of the whole story of his life. He appeared in 14 British comedy movies before he came to the United States.
No kidding.
An incredible career.
How cool.
Yeah. And of course, so many, again, people know him from the Harry Potter books. He starred in several Broadway musicals, and this is his own life. Just Jim Dale. It's wonderful, wonderful. Sorry. So there we go. Anyhow, it was a great weekend, and came back, and we'll talk about this. Came back for the most exciting event of the weekend, the big USA-Portugal World Cup game last night. We got a lot coming on, and guest was Scott Bland from the National Journal will be joining us a little bit later. Justin Sink will be here from The Hill, and Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. We'll cover it all with them and with you. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Save the Bees is the new Save the Whales. The White House unveiled a memorandum on Friday saying that the president has put together a task force to save bees from extinction. Now, this has been a story that's been going on for several years now. Scientists have noted a decline in the bee population.
And bats, too, by the way.
Okay, I hadn't seen the thing about the bats.
Oh, no, bats are really in serious trouble.
Great, great. Well, the
No, not great.
Well, no, I mean, on this particular story, the issue about the bees is that bees play a crucial role in pollination. So
yes.
It's not just a matter of bees dying off, it's a matter of crops and growing things. So the White House has said we have to figure out what's going on with the bees. So there's a task force that's been put in place through the Environmental Protection Agency. They have 6 months to figure out what the hell is going on. So they're going to report. We'll find out.
Okay.
Save the bees. And the bats.
They have a beehive on the White House lawn.
They do.
On the White House grounds. I've seen it, but at the First Lady's garden.
Mm-hmm.
And they make honey.
Yeah.
I hope they still make honey. I hope the bees haven't given up on the White House.
Yeah. I hope those bees are still around. From the really bad idea department, the CIA back in 2005 cooked up a plan to manufacture and make an action figure doll of Osama bin Laden.
Oh, no.
Their idea was to sell it and distribute it to Pakistani children so that it would scare them away from Osama bin Laden. It's not only that, it's very weird. They had a special heat-dissolving material that would melt off of bin Laden's face and make it look like a scary mask that he was wearing. But there are pictures of these actual models. We've tweeted it.
We never did it.
We made a couple of models, but we never actually followed through with the mass production of it. But you can see what they look like. And they're little Osama bin Laden action figure dolls. It's very creepy. It's so weird. There's a picture of it at BP Show on Twitter. Go follow us there. You can get a look at it. It's bizarre.
That is scary.
Whoever came up with that idea.
Yeah. Terrible idea. And if you're going to steal a car, you might want to make sure that you could drive it first. That's what 3 teenagers found out when they tried to steal a woman's car in Seattle over the weekend. They pulled a gun on her, they took her keys, they got in the car, and then realized
neither one of them knew how to drive.
None of them knew how to drive a stick.
Oh,
she
no.
had a stick shift, and none of them knew how to drive stick. So the woman, after she gave her keys away, she backed away to watch what was happening and watched them fumble around for a good 5 minutes before they got out of the car and ran away.
Oh, my goodness.
Realized they didn't know how to drive.
Funny.
They left the keys in the car, so she kept her car, no problem. But she got a scare.
I remember when my daddy taught me to drive a stick,
Yeah.
right? And I took my driver's license test in his red pickup truck from the gas station. I mean, that's what he told me. You have to learn to drive a stick in case you want to steal a car. That's what he told me.
Parents don't
know
how to drive a stick.
Daddy didn't raise no dummy.
That's right.
All right. Indeed. All right. Thank you. Well, I'm telling you, it was maybe the most exciting sports event I ever watched. The USA-Portugal game last night, the World Cup. And this World Cup, perhaps the most exciting sports event ever. Let me tell you something. This makes the Super Bowl look like, a boring daytime TV show or something. I say it. And my question to you is, as we get into this, is are you as excited about the World Cup? There we go. The World Cup as I am. And is this the tipping point? Is soccer finally going to take its place as a favorite, popular sport here in the United States of America, or has it already? 866-55-PRESS on ESPN. We hear that final heartbreaking last 30 seconds of the game when the United States is up 2-1, and we were all celebrating a victory over Portugal. Here's how it came down.
Portugal will take it back. One more try. Half a minute or so left. Out wide. Ronaldo in the attacking third. Ball played in and a headed goal. It's tied by Varela. Unless the flag goes up, it's 2-2. Unbelievable. Ronaldo with a cross. Varela with a powerful header. And Portuguese fans are up on their feet.
God, it's amazing how they can head that ball right into the goal. Silvestre Varela, yeah, it was just brutal to watch. But it's like this World Cup has just taken over, at least. And for a while, I was just sort of like on the sidelines of it. But I mentioned last Friday, a week ago, the 13th of June, I happened to be at the Dubliner, which is this famous Irish, what am I saying? Irish bar/restaurant here in D.C., right on Capitol Hill, and just down from Union Station. And that was one of the first games. I don't even remember who it was, but it wasn't the USA at all. And I was having lunch there with a couple of friends, and boy, suddenly it's just rooms erupting and cheers and everything on the bar side of the place, right? There was all World Cup.
Yep.
And they were really into it.
That's what I would say. If you are a casual sports fan, just a casual sports fan, not even a soccer fan, and you want to get into soccer, go watch it in a bar. Go watch it in a bar. It is a totally different experience.
Total. And so then Saturday, Carol and I we're in New York, and we went to Brooklyn, to Williamsburg to walk around. We went to this great event there called the Smorgasburg with all these food vendors down the East River State Park. It was just phenomenal. But walking down there and back and walking around Bedford Street in Brooklyn, there kept bar after bar after bar and crowds spilling out in the street, all watching World Cup. And again, the USA wasn't playing. So we came back to Washington, and then our good friend, Congressman Sam Farr from California, said, hey, I'm going over to Tunnicliff's right down the street here to watch the USA game tonight. Why don't you guys come over? So we did, and we were in that bar, and it was the most intense sport watching I've ever seen. I mean, there were 200-300 people packed in that bar, and the screens all around, and they were watching. They knew every player, they knew every move, they were watching every move. It was so, and cheering and groaning, and I mean, it was really. And then when the USA scored, oh my God, it was deafening. Yeah. USA, USA, and we were all into it. It was so exciting, really, really. And it made me wonder about, USA and soccer. And I went back after the game and, I got online, did a little research. But I found out that that this may be the tipping point. I mean, this is so. Maybe it's because one of the reasons is it's in our hemisphere, reasonable time zone, right, for games. It's not the exact same time, but it's certainly, easy for us to watch these games. And the USA team is doing so well, right? And so many people play soccer these days. But there are more American fans in Brazil than from any other country. We sold 4 times as many tickets to the World Cup to Americans as they did to Brits.
That's amazing.
And, Manchester United is the most popular sports team in the world. And, I mean, the Brits are so much into football, right? And we are not, but as a nation. But maybe we are.
Well, this is
the 4 times as many tickets as England.
It's fascinating because this conversation crops up every so often about why it doesn't catch on here in America, right?
Yeah,
and it's clear that the World Cup has certainly caught on in America.
It has,
right?
And 1994 was a big deal for that too, having it here in the United States.
Yeah,
the Rose
Bowl.
So
we have a soccer league here in this country,
19 teams
that nobody watches,
right?
And nobody and not a ton of people go to the games. So I do think that there's something about the World Cup fever more than it is about soccer.
But I wouldn't know this except I did this little research last night. Average attendance at the MSL games, 18,000.
Yeah,
which puts it just behind baseball. But I mean, it's football too. But I mean, it's up there.
I mean, that's a large crowd. It doesn't come close to football or baseball.
No. And ESPN just did a poll. Americans 12 to 17. Now, admittedly, 12 to 17, right, neck and neck with baseball.
That's
in terms
I believe that
popularity.
I believe that
of soccer.
wholeheartedly. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's just like the next generation and same-sex marriage is no big deal to them, right?
Soccer
is the next barrier
we're going to break down.
It's soccer. I think we're already there. I really do.
You want to know?
I think we're there.
You want to know what I think one of the biggest obstacles to soccer is? Is that yesterday's game ended in a tie. Why did it end in a shootout? It's or keep playing.
Yeah,
something.
no, end in a shootout is right.
Sports games should not end in a tie.
But here's the thing: that game, it's 90 seconds, and there are no breaks. There are no damn commercials.
That's right.
It's just intense. It's tense every single play, and it keeps going.
Yeah,
it's just captivating.
It really is.
What do you think? Are we there now? Are we ready to embrace? Well, when we're really ready to embrace soccer, we'll call it football, like everybody else in the world. 866-55-PRESS. It's exciting, the World Cup. Don't you think? Are you into it? I am. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, the World Cup fever taking over. Peter,
Couple of comments on Twitter where we're tweeting at BP Show. At BP Show, Razor says, no, we're not watching. We just watched during the World Cup. So it doesn't think it's going to catch on beyond the World Cup.
See, I disagree. I think it will.
And Gene says, please explain to Peter that even NFL and NHL games can end in ties. Which is true. The NFL thing is relatively new, and I think that's BS too. And you know where I stand on hockey. So
NFL games can end?
Yeah, they can end a tie.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's garbage. It's total garbage.
But no, I agree. I mean, have a shootout.
I agree. Look, do something.
Okay, I went to one World Cup game, which was 1994 in L.A. I was the Democratic State Chair, and I was in Al Gore's box. It was Brazil, Italy. And I remember, it went on and on and on. The game ended, no score. And then one overtime, no score, as I recall. Another overtime, like no score. And then finally, they just had a shootout.
Yeah.
And Brazil won.
Yeah.
And at least they got it over with. Yeah, man, I'm telling you. Soccer, I love it. I'm there.
Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Okay, here we go at 34 minutes after the hour. The Bill Press Show on a Monday morning, June 23rd. Yeah, fun watching the World Cup. Fun being part of the World Cup fever. Meanwhile, The situation in Iraq more and more serious, with news over the weekend that the Sunni militants have seized even more territory in the eastern side of Iraq, including an important border post between Iraq and Syria, which means it'll be even easier for them to get arms and equipment and manpower from Syria into Iraq. It's basically a porous border anyhow, and they control that entire area. Secretary of State John Kerry made a surprise visit to Iraq, arriving this morning. Before he left Egypt, he talked about the threat that we see from this new group, which used to be Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which is now the ISIS. Here is Secretary of State John Kerry.
Its ideology of violence and repression is a threat not only to Iraq, but to the entire region.
And of course, their plan or their goal is to create and establish a caliphate, they call it, which is a whole territory under Sharia law in that part of the world, starting with Iraq and part of Syria. And they are well armed. They are well funded, because they've captured the Mosul, which is the second largest city in Iraq, for example. They are benefiting from weapons, tanks, planes, helicopters supplied by us to the Iraqi army, which the Iraqi army left behind, and are now being used by the Sunni militants against the government of Iraq. The headline in this morning's New York Times: Iraq's military seen as unlikely to turn the tide.
Oops.
Yes. As Iraqi army forces try to rally on the outskirts of Baghdad, after 2 weeks of retreat, it has become increasingly clear to Western officials that the army will continue to suffer losses in its fight with Sunni militants and will not soon retake the ground it has ceded. Basically, and we'll talk to Joe Cirincione more about this a little bit later from the Ploughshares Fund, a little bit later in the program. Most observers are saying that it's only a matter of time before the Iraqi government falls, that they just cannot hold on, that the Sunni militants are so strong, the Iraqi army is so fractured and so weak that they're not going to be able to hold on at all. And unless we go in with massive show of military support, which I don't think there's any appetite for in this country. You tell me, 866-55-PRESS, if you're ready to go back in with both feet, so to speak. The president has said no combat ground troops. I was there Thursday at the White House when he did say we're going to send in 300 advisors, military advisors, to see what we could do and to provide some technical assistance, I guess, to the Iraqi army. But the Iraqi government is saying this morning, no, that's not enough. We need more. We need more. We need airstrikes. We need them now. We need bombing. We need them now. Boom, 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 boom. And I don't know, where we're going with that.
I thought it was fascinating when we were talking about going into Syria with just airstrikes or without putting troops on the ground, and the guttural reaction across the board from Americans was just like, no, we don't want to go into Syria. We don't want to get into another war. We saw what happened with Iraq. We don't want to go down that path again. And now here we are. It's Iraq again. And I don't know that people want anything done.
Meanwhile, and by the way, the other front page story in the New York Times this morning is talking about how, what a reversal this is and how tough this is on President Obama and Vice President Biden. Because, again, this is a time with 2.5 years ago, the president is sort of building his legacy block by block by block, okay? Now, we got some things we want to get done, like immigration reform, like climate change. But we got some things accomplished. On the shelf. Obamacare. Mm-hmm. It's done. It's working. That's part of our legacy. Ending the war in Iraq. Done. On the shelf. Part of our legacy. No, it's not. No, it's not. And the Times talks about it was December 2011 when the last troops left Baghdad, and Vice President Biden was sent over there to basically announce the end of the war.
Yeah.
And he called President Obama and said, quote, all I've said about this job as vice president, all I've said about this job, I take it back. Thank you for giving me the chance to end this GD war. And Obama responded, Joe, I'm glad you got to do it. So the two of them were feeling pretty good at that time. And today, here they go with the unthinkable, which is having to reverse course. And the president at the time, remember, wanted to leave some troops in Iraq. The Iraqi government said, no, we will not allow that unless those troops are subject to Iraqi law, which the United States has never allowed. And the president said, no deal. We're just going to pull all of our troops out. And it's too bad that we did. But again, the president didn't have any option. It was Maliki's decision and the Iraqi government's decision. And now, but I'm not even sure the 5,000 residual forces could have propped up the Iraqi army to the point where they just weren't. They're just not doing their job.
Well, that was the whole point that you and a lot of people made before we ever even went in there. Is there's no point for us to even get involved and try and turn this into a nation.
Particularly when everybody said from the beginning, the way I read it, that if you're going to have a unity government, you have to invite the other side. The Shiites have to invite the Sunnis to be a part of that government, and Maliki refused to do that. Now, meanwhile, here's the thing that really, really bugs me about this whole deal is the critics, the people who started this war in the first place are the chief critics now of President Obama, who is trying to deal with the failure of their war. Chief among them, of course, former Vice President Dick Cheney, on Face the Nation yesterday, still saying, blame it all on Barack Obama.
The scope of the problem in part is based upon an unwillingness by the president to recognize we have a problem. They're still living back in the day when they claimed we got bin Laden, terrorism problem solved. That wasn't true then. It's even less true today.
What gets me about Cheney is, first of all, he ought to just shut the hell up. I think there should be a rule, okay, that anybody who is part of starting the war in Iraq should not be allowed to speak now about what went wrong with it, because everybody knows the war in Iraq was a colossal failure and a huge mistake. So let's just say to Dick Cheney, to Paul Wolfowitz, to Condi Rice, to George Bush, who, by the way, has not spoken out, good for him, to Dick Cheney, who else on that list, to Bill Kristol, to Donald Rumsfeld, shut the hell up, okay? You have nothing to say. We don't want to hear from you because you started this war in the first place. All right? So you have nothing to say about what we ought to be doing right now.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Cheney particularly just lies through his teeth. That statement that he made, that Barack Obama felt that once we got Osama bin Laden, the war on terror was over. There's no truth to that statement at all. First of all, Obama never said that. The president never did any victory lap and went around saying, did he go on an aircraft carrier with a banner that said mission accomplished? No, he didn't brag about it. He didn't go around saying the war on terror is over. No. In fact, if you look, I wish I had the time to do that research this morning. If you look at how many drone strikes, how many Al-Qaeda militants have been killed in Pakistan, Afghanistan since we got Osama bin Laden, I'll bet it's hundreds. Mm-hmm. We're still going after these guys, right? We just got the guy that was the mastermind of the attack on Benghazi. I mean, President Obama has continued a very aggressive hunt after people who want to do harm to the United States. Now, he hasn't invaded another country. He hasn't started another war. That doesn't mean he hasn't pursued the continued onslaught against the people who are enemies of the United States. So again, just Dick Cheney is just sickening to hear him. I mean, I got to tell you, was that worth giving him a new heart for? I mean, I know that's cruel, but I mean, Jesus, you use your new heart to lie to the American people and to attack the President of the United States? Dick Cheney, just shut up. And all the rest of those people who started the war in Iraq. When we come back, we'll talk to Scott Bland from the National Journal about other news of the day. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 12 minutes before the top of the hour, Monday morning, June 23rd. Great to see you this morning here on the Bill Press Show. Some interesting political big primaries or runoffs, political events, I guess, this week, starting with Mississippi tomorrow. Scott Bland, executive editor of the National Journal Hotline, on top of all the latest political news. Hey, Scott, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about Mississippi. This is the runoff tomorrow, right, between Chris McDaniel and Senator Thad Cochran to find out who's going to be the Republican nominee. How's it look? What's going on down there?
That's right. Well, the two are both of them finished with about 49% of the vote in the initial primary just a few weeks ago, and so now they're running again head to head in this runoff to decide who's going to be the nominee and likely the next senator from Mississippi. Such a Republican state, the primary is pretty much all there is. Although there are some Democrats who think, and some Republicans, frankly, who think that Chris McDaniel could end up being a liability in the general election enough so that Democrats could potentially challenge for the seat. But before we get to that, he would still have to win the primary. Polling has been pretty inconclusive here. There hasn't been too much quality polling. There hasn't been anything showing a really decisive advantage for either candidate. One thing I will say is that it's very rare for an incumbent in this kind of situation, having actually finished second in the initial primary, to come back and win the runoff. These
right?
There's so low turnout. The campaign is Cochran's campaign has really been making an effort to reach out to folks who didn't turn out for the first race, to black voters, to Democrats, in the hope of defeating the Tea Party momentum that's come up behind McDaniel. And so it should be really interesting to see what happens on Tuesday.
Yeah, I saw that Thad Cochran has actually made a big effort toward African-American voters. I think like maybe only 2% of African-Americans in Mississippi are Republicans, right? Can Democrats vote in this Republican primary?
It's an open primary, and so the situation is that if you pulled the Democratic ballot in the first primary at the beginning of June, you are not eligible to vote in the Republican runoff. But anyone who either voted in the Republican race
or did not vote, huh?
Exactly. And so, so that kind of adds an element of unpredictability to this. Now, runoffs have a well-deserved reputation for being very low turnout, and I don't really know what to make of the idea that large numbers of people who didn't bother to vote in the initial contest are going to turn out for this one. There has been a lot of money spent. There's a lot of awareness of this, which is usually the problem with runoffs, is that there's no awareness. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It seems like a stretch.
Meanwhile, up in New York City, a lot of attention to the primary, the challenges to longtime Congressman Charlie Rangel. It looked for a while like Charlie Rangel might lose his seat or lose the primary, and yet he seems to have now gotten a little stronger. How do you read it? What's going on?
Yeah, again, I think that's another one where we may be waiting late into the night on Tuesday to see what happens. But he has been leading in independent polling that's going on there. I mean, what happened with Charlie Rangel is that in 2010 he had a big ethical scandal,
right,
and did quite poorly in that primary. I believe he won with 51%. Or something around there. And then the next election in 2012, his district was completely redrawn, and it went from being a plurality black district to being a majority Hispanic district. And as a result, this Dominican-American state senator, Adriana Espaillat, decided to challenge him last time, and is challenging him again this time. Rangel barely won last time. He won by, I think, about 2 points, and now Espaillat is challenging him again, and the primary has broken down very starkly along racial lines. In polling, Rangel leads by huge margins among African Americans, and Espaillat leads by huge margins among Hispanic voters. And the real question is whether Hispanic voters will turn out at the same rates that they represent the population of the district, which is fairly rare in Democratic primaries.
Turnout again will be key, and Charlie Rangel picking up the endorsement of Governor Andrew Cuomo.
That's right. He has picked up Cuomo's endorsement, but I don't believe he has had President Obama's support, which is very interesting. And I think that President Obama has made comments in the past about whether or not it might be time for, gently, of course, whether or not it might be time for new representation in that New York district. But Not time for new representation, but maybe time for a wrangle to call it a career. It's for incumbents in these situations, the wagons often circle at the end. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens to wrangle these things. Very hard. There has been polling, but it's very hard to poll. So we'll see what happens.
All right, we'll keep our eye on it. Thanks to the hotline, the National Journal hotline, nationaljournal.com. And Scott Bland with us this morning. Hey, Scott, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Back in just a moment.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information. A public service announcement from...
Exciting hour coming up with Zack Ford from Think Progress and Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, and of course, all of you.
This
stay with us.
is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains into the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. What do you say on a Monday morning? Here we go with another Bill Press show. Good to have you with us. Hope you had a great weekend, ready to dive into the issues of the day. There's a lot going on. Secretary of State John Kerry has arrived in Baghdad, a surprise visit, not announced ahead of time. He was in the region, so it's no big surprise. But he is there reportedly to put some pressure on Nouri al-Maliki and to let people know that we would welcome a new prime minister, somebody who would actually move to build a coalition government in Iraq, which al-Maliki has not done, has refused to do. Meanwhile, the New York Times this morning in its lead story reports that most observers say there is no way the Iraqi army can recover and take back the land that it lost to the Sunni militants. Yesterday, the World Cups continues to be one of the most exciting sports events ever. USA last night. What a heartbreaker. Just when it looked like we were going to beat Portugal 2-1 and move into the finals. That last-minute goal. It was a tie game. That means the USA is still alive, however, and will still advance. I think Germany may be next. Today in Washington, a big White House summit on working families, including speeches by the President, the First Lady, the Vice President, and Dr. Jill Biden. All 4 superstars of the administration will be there at that summit here in Washington. And in Mississippi tomorrow, the Tea Party challenger Chris McDaniel in the runoff against incumbent Senator Thad Cochran to see whether or not the Tea Party is still alive and able to capture a Senate seat in Mississippi. All of that and more coming up. And, of course, your calls welcome at 866-55-PRESS, Monday edition of the Bill Press Show. Welcome.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
For TV and online, this is the Bill Press Show.
Secretary of State John Kerry in Baghdad on a surprise visit, putting a little pressure on Prime Minister al-Maliki, maybe ending up with a new Prime Minister. Good morning, everybody. Let's hope so. It is Monday, June 23rd. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. As part of the Bill Press Show this Monday morning, we are booming out to you live all across this great land of ours from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., with all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. We'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to tell us what it all means to you. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And our entire team here this morning, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey. Good morning.
Good morning. Good weekend.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Yeah.
Had some people over last night to
World
watch the
Cup
World
action. Had some people over to the house. Yeah. We all acted like we loved soccer, like we've been watching it our whole lives.
America loves soccer. This is it. World Cup.
Our newfound love of soccer.
I hope it doesn't go away. Alicia Cruz is back this week. Hello, Alicia. Nice to have you back. She's covering the phones, waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And, yes, for those of you on Free Speech TV and those of you watching on our video stream worldwide, youtube.com/TawkrTV, say hello to Cyprian Boulding, our videographer. And we're pleased to welcome back to the program a good friend from Think Progress, covers LGBT issues for Think Progress, Zack Ford. Hello, Zack. How are you?
Good morning, gang.
Everything good?
Hey. Everything's peachy.
All right. Start off the week here. Big start. And the Pope has now come officially on board. This was, I thought, a really risky, groundbreaking statement on the part of the Pope. He came out over the weekend and came out against the mafia.
Well, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think this was a question.
Right.
I just sort of assumed
Right.
the Pope would be against the mafia. And I thought the Pope had always been against the mafia. I clearly do not understand the big deal about the Pope coming out and saying against.
It's just like those presidential debates where they force the candidates to just state for the record something plainly obvious. You know, like I can't imagine there's a whole lot that the Pope would like about the mafia.
But
well, they're Catholic.
They are good Catholic boys.
That's the
helps.
thing. The Sicilians, right? They go to mass on Sunday and then they butcher each other the rest of the week. Former mafia member Sal Palici, who's been in the Eyewitness program since he left the mob, he was very happy to hear what the Pope had to say.
today, with the audacious Pope that we have, him standing up, I think it's long overdue to demystify and de-glamorize organized crime, because what it really is a bunch of ruthless, greedy criminals.
All right. There you go.
And back in his heyday, he was known as Crazy Sal.
Oh, Crazy Sal.
I would know. I was one of those crazy criminals.
I like it. The audacious Pope. I mean, how audacious really is it?
Yeah, right. The anti-mafia.
I want to go out on a limb here. I'm against the mafia, too. Yeah. All right, just in case.
What an audacious move
I know.
by this man, our Pope.
Just in case there were any doubt. I just want you to know that it's all right. I'm telling you. This Pope, though, he's on top of every issue. Yeah, he is. So Zack is here with us for the first part of the hour. We'll be joined by Joe Cirincione a little bit later from the Ploughshares Fund to get more into the situation in Iraq. And Justin Sink covers the White House for The Hill newspaper. Will be along in the next hour as well. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Congratulations to friend of the show, Michael Isikoff, who recently left NBC News. We got word that he is joining Yahoo News as its chief investigative correspondent. He will begin in August. So we'll have him back on the show very soon.
This sounds like a long vacation here. It's only the 23rd of June here.
Hey, look, it's summertime, man. Let it take a little time off.
In between jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Yeah, Michael is a good guy. One of the best investigative reporters out there.
Absolutely.
Maybe ever. And been a good friend of the program, been on many times. We'll
have
get him back in
soon.
Yep.
Talking about the World Cup. So if you want to dress like a World Cup player, one of the United States men's soccer players, you can buy all of the gear that they wear.
Really?
You absolutely can. You could buy their jersey for $150. You can buy their shorts for $45. You can buy their socks for $22. And you can buy their shoes for an average of $250. Throw in the official ball that they use at $160, and to dress like an American World Cup soccer player, that will cost you $625.
Where do you get all this
USA
stuff?
Today, you can buy it online. They sell it online. Some sports stores will have
from
it.
the U.S. team.
Yeah. You could buy it from the team store. They have it there. Then some sports stores actually.
Can you order a set for me during the interview?
You got it. Absolutely.
Right,
yeah. Then we'll have you back on to model it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Can you get the fluorescent lime cleats though? I really want those.
Well, they say that the Americans use mostly two different kinds of cleats.
Their shoes are cool.
Yeah,
I love
them in sort of custom ways. Like you see some guys with two different colored shoes on. There's a guy running around out there yesterday, one pink shoe, one yellow shoe.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I think he learned that from Igor.
He must have learned that from Igor.
But I got to tell you, the other thing, we were talking earlier about the World Cup, right? About one of the attractions to it. And we had a woman reporter in last week who was saying she preferred soccer to baseball or football or whatever because they're hunks.
Yeah.
These guys, and they're good-looking guys, and they are. You see more of them than you see of baseball or football players.
I was
for
just
sure.
thinking that exact same thing, and I wasn't going to say it, so I appreciate that you did.
in baseball, Prince Fielder doesn't take his jersey off at the end of the game.
Yeah,
Whereas
right.
Ronaldo at the end of the game will usually take his shirt off, and yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a guy at such an athlete. They're all incredible athletes. And yesterday was the annual media picnic at the vice president's residence. He invited reporters and their children and their families to show up. And as part of the tradition of this media picnic, Joe Biden got in a water fight with the reporters. He got all of the children and a lot of his grandkids to all get super soakers.
Oh, yeah.
About 18 of them total. And he led the assault on reporters and hosed them down with super soakers. Water gun fight at Uncle Joe's place. There's some great pictures that came out of it. We're tweeting out the link to the story, which have a lot of pictures from our friends. John Stanton was there. Josh Lederman from the AP, he got hosed with a super soaker. Dave Weigel had a lot of photos, so check it out. We're tweeting out the link at BP Show.
Then I remember the day under Al Gore, it was so boring, you just got your photo taken with the vice president. Now you get a water gun fight.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Peter. 14 minutes after the top of the hour. So, Zach, last week it seemed, the White House has certain message weeks, right? This week we're going to focus on this issue, climate change or immigration reform. Last week seemed to be, and I'm glad you're in today, to talk about the week of LGBT issues at the White House. President went up to New York to a big gala there.
Sure.
And announced that he's going to be signing an executive order to end discrimination in the workplace for federal contractors, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is a big move. We've been pressuring the White House to take this step for actually a very long time. And part of the issue that they've always said is that they believe there should be a legislative solution, that this should be passed through Congress, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, or ENDA, so that it protects all workers and not just federal workers. But our argument has always been, one, there already is an executive order that protects people based on race and sex and the other classes that are already protected under law, so it's in that same tradition to include an executive order. But also, it's not redundant. There are folks who won't be protected by ENDA because they might work at a smaller business, but if that business does enough business with the federal government, they will be protected by the executive order. And they've finally sort of arrived at the conclusion that ENDA is not going to pass. John Boehner has said there's no way it's coming up for a vote in the House. So they said, we can't leave these workers unprotected any longer, and we need to make this happen.
And and I've heard that argument at the briefings for the last year at least, where Chris Geithner, right, and others have raised that issue. Why don't you just sign this executive order? And they've always said, because Congress has to act first. We have to wait for Congress to act. So I was wondering what finally made them change their mind is just the realization that it was hopeless, right, with Congress.
Yeah, well, for a long time they were saying that it was hypothetical, and I think that we were able to shift the conversation, especially after the State of the Union address this year, when they switched their position and did the same thing on minimum wage. And they said, well, if Congress isn't going to raise the minimum wage, we're going to take executive action to at least support federal contractors, employees. And so not only did they do that, but I think we shifted the conversation away from why don't you do this to do you understand that even if we passed ENDA, we would still want this? And then I think with the wake of Boehner just saying it's not going to come up, and who knows what will happen in 2014, whether we could even get it through the Senate in another session, it just looked like the right time to go through.
So the president said, I'm going to sign this executive order when?
Well, they're still drafting it. ENDA has actually become...
All this time, they don't have the draft ready?
Well, we actually thought that they did a long time ago, but, they're revisiting it. And part of the issue is that ENDA has really been watered down over the 20 years that we've been trying to pass it through Congress. And it now has a religious exemption that says that if you're a religious organization, it would be okay to discriminate based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And that's unprecedented. I mean, the only exception that religious groups enjoy is to discriminate based on religion. You don't have to hire Jewish people if you're a Catholic organization. You can hire Catholic people. But they're not allowed to discriminate on race. So the fact that it's in ENDA sort of suggests that it's okay or that it's incompatible for sexual orientation and religion to not have to work together. And so I think the White House is weighing that same thing. We got support for ENDA because we had that exemption in, and they're trying to decide whether or not to include that same carve-out in the executive order. We're hoping that they don't, though.
I just have to say, as an aside, I'm really getting sick and tired of religious exemptions for anything. I mean, we now, any day the other shoe is going to drop with the United States Supreme Court, which is considering the big, fat religious exemption for Hobby Lobby, that they do not have to provide contraception as part of the healthcare policy they provide their employees, and they cloak this outright discrimination in the name of religion, and what people are saying, well, if you call it a religious exemption objection, then you can get away with anything.
Sure,
right? And that's what they're trying to do in this case too. Oh, we can discriminate because your faith does not tell you to discriminate against anybody for any reason whatsoever.
Yeah, and
no faith.
I think the argument that they try to make is that because we believe homosexuality is a sin, or we believe that transgender identities don't exist because God created Adam and Eve, then people who say they identify that way aren't members of our religion, and they try to conflate the two dimensions of identity. But there are a ton of people who are gay and trans and bisexual and lesbian who identify as Christian, who identify as people of faith. So it's trying to enforce religious identities upon other people, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So we don't have a date yet for when the president is going to sign this executive order, but also last week, as part of this, it seems, delivering the message,
well, it's Pride Month.
The Department of Labor came out with some new protections.
Yes. So as we've been trying to implement the Supreme Court decision overturning DOMA last year, the Defense of Marriage Act, the Obama administration has been trying all the different ways to make sure that same-sex married couples enjoy the same benefits. And this was sort of the last one that they felt they could do, which is that regardless of what state you live in, if your marriage was legal in the state where you married, you're now eligible for leave benefits under the Family Medical Leave Act. So the issue has always been place of celebration versus place of residence. And what the Obama administration told us last week is that they've kind of done all that they can do. There are a couple benefits under Social Security and some veterans benefits that have separate laws that dictate that it has to be based on where you live. So you could be legally married in the federal government's eyes in all of these ways, but still, have trouble accessing Social Security partner benefits and some veterans survivor benefits. So
systematically, they've been releasing all the obstacles that were built up under the Defense of Marriage Act, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Isn't it's still striking to me that two of the biggest obstacles to full equality for the LGBT community, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the Defense of Marriage Act were both signed into law by President Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they were seen as compromises at the time. I know Hillary, when she was on Fresh Air talking to Terry Gross about it, was kind of defending the idea behind DOMA because they saw it as, well, states can still do it. We're actually creating a window for states to at least enact their own policies. But then once Massachusetts started doing that, we kind of saw how bad DOMA really was.
Yeah. Let me just say, some people saw them as compromises at the time. I saw them as sellouts and bad policy at the time, and I was right then, and I'm right today.
I was in 6th grade when DOMA passed, so I don't know that I was thinking too much about it. But
Zack Ford here with us from Think Progress, editor of Think Progress LGBT. Your questions, your comments. It was a remarkable week in terms of the president. Actions, not just words, but actions on these issues last week affecting the LGBT community. 866-55-PRESS. Give us a call here. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Whoa, already 27 minutes after the hour. Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund joins us in the next half hour. Zack Ford is here right now from Think Progress LGBT. So, Zack, how are we on same-sex marriage? What are we up to in how many states now?
19 states and the district.
19 states legal, right?
Yes.
So
Get married today.
Married today. And are there are some other states where judges or cases are
We've had
pending?
over 14 rulings, I think, at this point since DOMA was overturned last year. All of them have been stayed, except the ones that haven't been appealed. So they're sort of up in the air. And we've had some marriages in windows in Utah and in Michigan after a state ruling in Arkansas and kind of after the ruling in Wisconsin a few weeks ago.
So this issue has kind of been resolved. I mean, obviously, that's not even half the states yet, but it's only a matter of time. Is that?
I think there's a suit filed in every single state that doesn't have marriage equality, so they're all wending their way up. We're expecting circuit court rulings in Utah and Oklahoma and in Virginia soon, so it could be at the Supreme Court.
But the opponents are still out there, right? They were here last week.
They were here last week. The National Organization for Marriage had their big March for Marriage. They hauled out Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, Representative Tim Huelskamp. All our old favorites. I was out there. We were interviewing some folks. I took my intern Shannon out, and
how many people did they have?
I generously gave it 2,000, but it was not a big crowd, and it was mostly people who had been bussed in from Jersey and New York.
Boy, how times have changed. Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, you better get a new issue because this one is gone. Hey, Zack, thanks so much for coming in.
Hey,
Great
it's
to
always
see
a
you.
pleasure,
Thanks
guys.
for your good work.
It's the Bill Press Show.
should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. It is the Bill Press Show. We are coming to you live from our nation's capital. And we're brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists, good men and women of the Machinists Union. Sharpening America's edge on the global economy. Building great aircraft for the American airline industry, among other great things. You can find out more about their good work under President Tom Buffenbarger at their website, goiam.org. Headlines today, the big story of the day remains Iraq and the very troubling situation there. Secretary of State John Kerry arriving in Iraq this morning for a surprise visit, although not a great surprise because he was in the region and certainly Iraq is where the action is. Joe Cirincione joins us from the Ploughshares Fund to take a look at it and try to sort it all out. Ploughshares.org. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Bill.
Headline, lead story in the New York Times this morning, Iraq's military seen as unlikely to turn the tide. The story is saying that they have given up so much territory and they are so disorganized that they're trying to rebuild, but it doesn't, according to the New York Times, most observers are saying they're not going to be able to do so and won't be able to take back that lost territory. Is it really that bad?
It is really that bad, and we're starting to see more stories about it. The first U.S. advisors should be arriving in the next couple of days, and their job is to take stock. But it appears that the hundreds of millions of dollars that we spent training that army, about $15 billion total, just for that, did not leave behind a functioning, effective force. It got corrupt leadership. It's been sectarian, dominated by the Shia, excluding the Sunnis. And apparently in the first battles, the ones in Mosul 2 weeks ago, it was the officers that left first. Oh. And that's why the entire division collapsed.
So the officers left first and leaving behind all this American equipment, which we had given the Iraqi army. The tanks, the planes, the helicopters.
Now effectively given to ISIS, the terrorist group, the Sunni group that is defeating the Iraqis, at least in the Sunni-held areas. They have shipped much of it back to Syria.
So is Iraq gone?
Iraq isn't gone.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think yes. The nation that we have known as Iraq is almost certainly gone. What you can salvage from this, what you can put back together, that's the question.
Why is John Kerry there? What is his purpose?
Well, two purposes. One is to demonstrate support for the beleaguered Iraqi government, and the other is to see if he can convince al-Maliki, the prime minister, to leave. U.S. officials have been stepping up their push on Maliki in the last week or so. Kerry denies that he's there to ask him to leave, that it's not his decision, but it's clear that they want a government that can be more inclusive, because they believe, and I think they're right about this, as long as he stays as narrowly sectarian as he does, as long as his government is a Shia government, there's no way he's going to defeat the Sunni insurgency.
Is there time to effect that change? That's the big question I have. In other words, yes, if you could have somebody new who would invite the Sunnis to be part of this government and include them in the leadership, a real power sharing, and the Kurds as well, right? A real power sharing. And then that political solution.
Yeah.
But that takes time to put together. You can't do that overnight. I mean,
so there's a couple of things here. One is this started immediately after our invasion. In 2003, when we overthrew Saddam Hussein, the minority Sunni leader who had kept the Shias down, well, there was all this Shia resentment that bubbled to the surface right away. We were able to sort of keep that more or less under control, but as the Shias re-engaged in ruling their areas of the country, the Sunnis revolted, etc. So right away, this Sunni-Shia divide developed. This has been going on since 672 A.D. I don't think there's a quick fix to this. I don't think we're going to be able to find a government. And interestingly, the efforts of the Shia militia to now rally in defense of Baghdad, defense of the country, is actually exacerbating it. You read
in other
Sunnis,
words, this Shia cleric who called on everybody to volunteer to save our country,
yes.
right? And people are
so
they're
militia,
responding.
Tens of thousands of these militiamen marched in Baghdad over the weekend, tens of thousands. That completely freaks out the Sunnis and makes them even more fearful, even more unwilling to trust the Maliki government. So I don't think the situation is going to improve anytime soon.
Well, we get back to the question about is Iraq gone? You know, I think you and I both agree.
Yeah.
Iraq, as we know it today.
Yeah.
So, what is it going to look like?
Fareed Zakaria had an interesting column over the weekend. He talked about Plan B.
Yes.
And you and I talked about something like this. If we can't defeat the Sunnis, what can you do? And I called it a fallback option, a containment option. You understand that this conflict's going to take decades to work out, and you can't fix it. He calls it an enclave option. You have to understand that what's happening in Syria and Iraq, these two artificially constructed countries that the British and French put in place, is that these things are now breaking apart, and they're going back to ethnic, tribal rule. And you've got to recognize that you can't stop that force. The only way to stop it is an imposed authoritarian regime, the way Assad had, the way
Saddam Hussein had. Sure.
And the monarchs before them.
Just like the way Tito had in Yugoslavia.
Exactly. So if you can't do that, then this is what you're going to get, and you have to recognize that and try to defeat the more extreme elements like ISIS and give some support for the moderate, more forward-leaning elements like the Kurds in Kurdistan. And you got to just work this new problem. You can't go back to the old ways.
So if we had a Kurdistan and then a Shiite land and a Sunni land, right? Three different...
Well,
three different states or three different countries.
And I think that's part of what we have to recognize is the old order is collapsing, and we're watching this happen. The new order is coming out, and we have to adjust to that reality, not think that we can impose a solution.
So I was at the White House last Thursday when the president came into the briefing room and said, okay, here's what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
Up to 300 military advisors. And he said, which I thought was significant, that I'm also open to further military action if deemed necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, no way would there be ground troops, combat troops on the ground. But he did say clearly he was talking about airstrikes, right? Possibly. Did the president? Did he do enough? Did he do the right thing, and did he do enough?
I think this is what you had to do. I mean, I'd like to know what you think about this. I don't think we want to go back into another Iraq war. People are already talking about this as the third Iraq war, the first in 91, the second in 2003.
Oh, yeah, right, no, yeah.
And I'd like to know from you whether you thought what Obama's body language told you about his. But you can't, okay, what?
No, I'll just tell you, the body language was very clear.
Yeah.
He did not want to do this. I talked about it Friday morning. His heart was clearly not in this. He was not giving an impassioned, convincing case, making a convincing case to the American people. He read every word of what he said, as if he had to.
And I think that's the situation he's in, because he understands, like we do, there's no solution here. There isn't a military fix here. You can have some military that could possibly contain the damage. I think one of the things that these advisors can do is come back and confirm to the president and the American people that the Iraqi army is beyond repair, that there's nothing we can do to fix this, and no amount of new aid or new Hellfire missiles or tens of thousands of new U.S. troops is going to fix it. That's in part. But I understand you can't just leave them. You have to try at least some assistance. One of the raps on the Iraqi army is that when the advisors left 2 years ago, that we took with them the knowledge, the ability of how to run large-scale mechanized operations. And the Iraqi army is incapable of coordinating those kinds of large-scale maneuvers. Maybe the advisors can help them with that.
So should we have left a residual force in Iraq, and would it have made any difference?
I don't. Very few of us were against this kind of force, 1,000 or so advisors to help them. That was we could have done that, but the Iraqis didn't want us.
We almost expected it. I mean, I assumed we all assumed there would be some Americans left there when we
leave Afghanistan. There will be some Americans left in Afghanistan, but the Iraqi army wouldn't. The Iraqi government wouldn't let us.
That's the important point.
Out.
They kicked us out. Right. Now, when we come back, I want to take a quick break because the critics have certainly not been silent, right? Yeah. And I find it very interesting that the chief critics of President Obama's decision and the way he's handled this Iraq crisis, all those chief critics are the very people who started the war in the first place, led by Dick Cheney.
Yes.
We'll get into that with Joe Cirincione here from the Ploughshares Fund. And take your calls at 866-55-PRESS when we come right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
What to do about Iraq, and has the president done enough? Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund. Ploughshares, Ploughgh, shares.org. Joe's here in studio with us. Joe, we're looking to you for the answers. So let's hear from the critic number one of the president. Here is former Vice President Dick Cheney yesterday on Face the Nation.
The scope of the problem in part is based upon an unwillingness by the president to recognize we have a problem. They're still living back in the day when they claimed we got bin Laden, terrorism problem solved. That wasn't true then. It's even less true today.
You remember that, don't you? You remember when we got Osama bin Laden, that the president went up on an aircraft carrier with a big sign that said "Mission accomplished" and said "War and terror is over. We don't have to worry about it anymore." You remember that, don't you?
Right.
What is Cheney talking about?
Nothing. Nothing at all. Obama was very careful to point out that this was a individual has been brought to justice, but there was a bigger struggle out there.
Yeah, and I mean, and he has hardly stopped targeting and going after those who would do evil to or harm to the United States, right?
We have special forces operating with drone strikes in over 7 countries in the Middle East.
We just got the guy that was the ringleader for Benghazi. I mean, Cheney just makes this up. But it's the critics. If you look at them, the chief critics of President Obama today, in addition to Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz,
yes,
John Bolton,
yeah,
right, Bill Kristol,
Yeah.
All of whom were
Elliot Abrams, Charles Krauthammer, the Washington Post editorial board.
Yeah, all hawks and chief supporters of the war in Iraq in the first place, right?
Yeah, the people who created this mess, and their history of this particular problem goes back only 2 years. It goes back to when President Obama pulled the troops out of Iraq and ended major U.S. combat involvement in the war. And that's where they want to start. That's where he failed, they say. Oh, and then he didn't intervene in Syria. Oh, then they didn't intervene in all the other places we told him to bomb. Oh, and he didn't attack Iran. So this is his failure. This is their analysis is that we didn't bomb enough. More troops should have died to keep this war going.
Meanwhile,
it is a pointless, empty analysis.
Meanwhile, did anything that Dick Cheney ever said about Iraq ever prove to be true?
I really think no. The answer to the question is no. I really think that every interview with Dick Cheney should start just by reading his words from 2002, 2003.
Mm-hmm.
Every time Charles Krauthammer gets on the paper, he's just put up what he said was going to happen in Iraq and why we had to go to Iraq. Same with Bill Kristol.
It was only going to take months.
Yeah.
Maybe weeks.
It was
right?
Weeks. It wasn't going to cost more than $1 billion. The Iraqis were going to pay
and the
for
oil
this.
was going to pay for it.
And this was going to set off a democratic tsunami throughout the region.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were saying. This was how we were going to remake the Middle East in an American image.
And, of course, we were going to be greeted as liberators.
As they say, you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Nice pull. Nice pull.
You mentioned that we could learn from history here.
Oh, so Rachel Maddow has a terrific column in the Washington Post this morning. She writes once a month, I think, now for the Washington Post. And she talks about what happened with the fall of Vietnam, how this was a battle. Could we have stayed longer? Yes. Could we have killed more of the enemy? Yes, we could have. Yeah. Would it have stopped? Would we have won? No. And that's the way you have to look at this. You have to understand when you're in a losing war and cut your losses. And even after we cut, President Ford wanted to send more military aid over there in 1974. The Congress said no. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, including a young Joe Biden, marched over to the White House and met with President Ford and said they weren't going to give him this money for more military operations, only for evacuation.
In Iraq. In Vietnam. In Vietnam, right.
And so then, a year or so later, Vietnam falls, inevitably. A corrupt leader, DM. And President Ford goes on and he says this about this. There is a school of thought that if only America's... No. He goes on to say, some tend to feel that if we do not succeed in everything everywhere, then we have succeeded in nothing anywhere. So that's what you see here. We got these problems in Iraq, and the critics of Obama are saying he's a complete failure, a complete disaster. I reject this, said Ford. We can and should help others to help themselves, but the fate of responsible men and women everywhere in the final decision rests in their own hands, not in ours. And that's the case with the Iraqis. Bingo. We can't put this country back together for them.
So this morning, John Kerry arrives, the Iraqi government is out saying, 300's not enough. You're not doing enough. You're not sending us enough help. We need more, and we need bombings, and we need the airstrikes, and we need them to start right now.
Here's what I really like about Obama's decision. There were many in the press, including former military commanders in Iraq, who were calling for immediate military action, airstrikes last week. Then, they said, you'd be in a position to get reforms from the Maliki government. Obama says, no, we're not going to do it that way. We are going to send some advisors, but any more military cooperation is dependent on reforms in the Maliki government. So they are that's the only way you're going to get them to do this. So they're holding their feet to the fire. Unless you see some kind of reform, what's the point of more military action? A dozen airstrikes, 100 airstrikes, you think that's going to stop this? No, it's not. It's just going to further alienate portions of the Sunni Muslim world against us.
Wow. It's just, whoever thought that we would be back here, right? I mean,
we'd be back here.
We got a month ago, we got the war in Iraq finished. Now all we have to do is end the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And now here we are, war in Iraq back.
Well, as you and I have discussed this, before the invasion, a lot of people said, don't do this, because if you do, this is what's going to happen. So even as we were pulling out of Iraq, people understood that this was not, we're not leaving behind a stable country. I know what the president said. He was putting a nice gloss on it, but we're not going to leave behind a stable Afghanistan either. This is a mess that we've created there.
Yeah. Yeah, like what happened in Iraq. Wait till you see what happened in Afghanistan. Yeah. Joe Cirincione, so great of you to come in, Joe, and so great for you to be on top of this stuff. A voice of reason.
We got to keep at it.
Wish there were more of you. That's right. We got to keep at it. They need us on
that wall.
People understand what's going on, and with Joe, we always do. Thanks so much, Joe.
Thank you, Bill.
We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, I know you like the first 2 hours. Well, hour number 3 coming up. Too bad we're going to lose you on Free Speech TV. But we have the big alternative, of course, which is our video stream worldwide, TawkrTV, TAWKR TV. Here's what you do. Go to youtube.com/TawkrTV. We'll be joined here in studio by Justin Sink, who covers the White House for The Hill newspaper. He'll be here to tell us all about the president's new initiatives on Iraq. And, of course, we'll take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Hour number 3, youtube.com/TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
If I could have an extra 5 years to live. You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much. I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna. I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
President Obama, the big thing today is the White House Summit on Working Families up to the Omni Shoreham Hotel. The president will be speaking to that assembly up there at 1:40 this afternoon. And then at 2 o'clock, he'll be participating in a roundtable on working families at the hotel. By the way, the First Lady, Vice President Joe Biden, and Dr. Jill Biden will also speak. We'll be right back for hour number 3 of the Bill Press Show.
All right, I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay,
So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
James West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Right.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Kerry in Iraq this morning. Maybe he can fix it. Al-Maliki certainly can't. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Good to see you. Monday, June 23rd. Thanks so much for joining us here on The Bill Press Show. We are here with you side by side on your local progressive talk radio station. And we are here with you on the TuneIn app. Download it. It's free. Tune in and then go to the Progressive Voice channel. There we are. And we're also here with you all around the globe on our video stream. That's also free at TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker. Spell it right, TAWKRTV. Great to see you this Monday morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Watched a lot of World Cup. And otherwise just relaxed and ready to go here on a Monday morning with the big news of the day. We'll tell you what's going on and give you a chance to sound off about it. Either give us a call at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. With our team in place here with Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
All right, USA.
That's right.
Alicia Cruz got the phones covered. There she is. And the big wave. Yes, all right. Can't do without that. Alicia's back. Good to have her back. And Cyprian Bolding, as always, our videographer on the job. How about it? Everything good over the weekend?
Yes, indeed. A lot of soccer.
I know.
A lot of sun. A lot of pool time.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
A lot of football. Football, yeah, indeed.
That's the big question, is if we get rid of the name football and start calling it, or if we get rid of the name soccer and start calling it football, what do we call American football?
Murder.
American football. Murder.
Murder.
Oh, my.
Yeah, Moneyball, we could call it. Yeah, we have other names for it, right? And also over the weekend, we celebrated Prince George's first birthday.
Oh.
Let's not let that go unnoticed. In fact, the Brits did something very special to celebrate his birthday. Jimmy Fallon talked about it last week to Friday night, I think, in Florida.
Thank you, British government,
for making a special silver coin in honor of Prince George's first birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Because what better way to honor a baby than with a priceless collectible choking hazard? There we go. In honor of George, this is sterling silver Lego piece. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get a silver coin, but don't let your kids get near it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How about that? Justin Sink from The Hill newspaper covers the White House for The Hill. Will be along just a little bit later in this hour, and we will tell you about the most exciting event, maybe of all time. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Speaking of soccer, women's soccer, big star for the women's team, Hope Solo, the goalie, was arrested.
Yeah, she's not in such good shape.
No, not in such good shape. She was arrested over the weekend on domestic violence charges. Story's still sort of coming out, but she was arrested at her home in Kirkland, Seattle, in Washington. She's being held without bail, and turns out she had an argument with her sister, is what it looks like. It looks like alcohol may have been involved, as is usually the case in these types of stories. We'll continue to follow the story and keep you posted on what happens next for Hope Solo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she and her sister.
Yeah.
Went at it.
Not good.
Each one is claiming the other one started the fight.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
But you could tell from a mile away, alcohol was a factor.
Did her sister live in a trailer?
It does have that feel.
I smell a trailer here.
It does have that feel,
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Save the Bees is the new Save the Whales, at least if you follow what the Obama administration announced on Friday. They released a memorandum to create a new task force that will investigate what's happening to the bees. Scientists for years have shown that bee population is declining around the world, which is a big deal because not only is it the loss of the bees, but they pollinate a lot of the food that we eat. So the EPA has been charged with putting together a task force. It's going to take them 6 months to take a look at why the bees are dying, where they're going, what's happening to the bees. So 6 more months, we'll let you know what's happening.
And I want to point out that bats are also in trouble, and there are many stories about these bats they find in these caves. They have this white mold on them, and bats serve a very important function as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm deathly afraid of them because I'm always afraid they're going to make a nest in my hair. So I'm personally afraid of bats, but I know they are very, very important. And so I hope we can save the bees and the bats and the whales.
Save the bees, save the bats, save the whales.
And the armadillos, too.
Sure. Why
save them all. Save them all.
And Starbucks. If you drink your coffee at Starbucks, you will see the price go up in the coming weeks. They announced that their drinks in the stores are going to go up between 10 and 25 cents per drink. And if you're buying coffee, packaged coffee in the supermarket, that could go up about $1. They say that it has to do with the rising cost of coffee. Starbucks did point out that this has nothing to do with the fact that Starbucks announced that they're going to start paying for tuition of their workers. They say that that's completely unrelated. So if you're going to go drink your coffee at Starbucks, get ready to pay a little bit more.
Coffee scarce or something? Or
I didn't know that, but they attributed the price increase to, quote, competitive dynamics and the rising cost of coffee.
All right.
There you go.
All the more reason to drink iced tea.
That's it.
Yeah. And you make it sun tea, and it's cheap. So I got to tell you, here's my question to you. I've got to start on this. It is the most exciting event of the moment. It's what everybody is talking about. They're not talking about Iraq. They're talking about the World Cup. I just can't believe how Americans have just adopted the World Cup and are paying attention, to the World Cup. And you see it, I don't know whether you have, all around you. And in my case, just like I think the second day maybe the World Cup was open, 13th of June, I was having lunch down at the Dubliner Hotel restaurant here in Washington, D.C., just down from Union Station, big Irish restaurant bar. And it was midday, and the place was packed I didn't realize what was going on at first. It didn't pick up, and then suddenly screaming and shouting and cheering, and it was a World Cup match, and I forget now exactly what team was playing, but it was great. It was very exciting. This weekend, Carol and I went to New York. Saturday, we were walking around Brooklyn, around Williamsburg, Brooklyn, just to see that borough and visit it a little bit. Went to a great food fair there called the Smorgasburg. But the point is, all through Bedford Avenue and around that area was bar after bar after bar with huge crowds spilling out into the street of people watching the World Cup. Came back to Washington. Our good friend, Congressman Sam Farr from California, gets in touch with us and says, hey, I'm going over to Tunnicliff's right down the street here, little hangout bar down the street here, to watch the World Cup game. Why don't you guys come by? So we did. And I got to tell you, it was intense last night. That game with, well, we know how it turned out. But that game with the USA versus Portugal, and there were 200-300 people packed into that bar. And I've never been part of such an intense sports scene with the big screens around, and everybody, they knew every play, they knew every player, they watched every play, they cheered and cheered, and when the United States scored, oh my God, it was deafening.
Knocked the roof off.
Knocked the roof off, yeah. USA, USA, it was great. And I was thinking, that was replicated thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times across this country yesterday in bars and in restaurants, in private homes. In Chicago, I know they had some huge park, the thousands of people there with big screens watching the game last night. And it was a heartbreaker, as we know, because, the U.S. scored, Portugal scored right away, then
and
took looked bad, then a long time, and finally then we tied it up, and then we went ahead. And it was everybody euphoric, and with 30 seconds to go, here's what happened.
Portugal will take it back. One more try. Half a minute or so left. Out wide. Ronaldo in the attacking third. Ball played in and a headed goal. It's tied by Varela. Unless the flag goes up, it's 2-2. Unbelievable. Ronaldo with a cross. Varela with a powerful header. And Portuguese fans are up on their feet.
Everybody thought it was over. I mean, the Portuguese fans certainly thought it was over. American fans thought we had won it. But, that's the bad news. The good news is we're still alive.
Yeah.
Then the bad news is we probably have to play Germany next. We'll play Germany next.
We still have a very good chance of moving forward.
But the point I wanted to talk about is, pardon me, not who won or who lost last night or how great the United States did, and we did great, but is that I think, and we've talked about this before, why isn't soccer more popular in this country today? I think we've turned the corner. I think this World Cup certainly could be, and I think is, the tipping point. If you look already, and I checked the stats last night, one of the signs of that is there are more American fans, more people from the United States, fans from the United States in Brazil than from any other country for the World Cup. That's never happened before.
It's amazing.
Now, it's in our hemisphere, maybe easier to get to, although Brazil's not next door.
Yeah, exactly.
And Manaus certainly is not easy to get to, where the game was played last night. But there are more Americans in Brazil than from any other country. We sold, or the World Cup sold, 4 times as many tickets to Americans as they did to Brits. And look at how popular soccer is there. Football is there. With Manchester United, the most popular sports team in the world.
Yeah.
It's not the Yankees. It's not the Miami Heat. It's the Manchester United, right? So when you look at the way people have been following this, and I got to tell you, I understand it more after watching that game last night. I think the only time I ever watched an entire soccer game, although I did go to a World Cup game in 1994, but I wasn't paying that much attention to what went on in the field. Is those games, they're 90 minutes rather, and they're intense, and they keep going, and there are no breaks and no commercials and no timeouts, and it's just boom, 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 boom.
That's one of the reasons
and
why...
you can see the ball.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons why
seeing
the
hockey puck
in a bar is such a unique experience, because you have this group of people. If you're watching baseball, there are several breaks in baseball or football or basketball even, right? And there are no breaks really in soccer. It is just a nonstop.
And they are phenomenal athletes.
They're amazing. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The endurance of a soccer player is beyond any other sport, I would say.
It is, yeah.
I don't know what the mileage is that those guys run every game, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And fast.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's
and
so
they can't
intense,
let up. I mean,
and
there's
it's these
no
little bursts here and there of energy, but it's just this tense progression in the game that when something exciting happens, you rise and fall with it.
Yeah. And so I guess my question is, have we turned the corner now? Is soccer going to be right up there with baseball and basketball and football, you know, in terms of popular sports in this country? I think we have. Now, some people say it's just because it's in our time zone and our hemisphere that we're paying attention to it. I think it's more than that. I really think, you know, look, particularly if you look at the younger generation today, probably 95% of them, if not higher, played soccer as kids, right? And liked it and had fun with it and continue. And again, and it's it's an accessible sport for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that there's a holdover, there's a carryover. Plus, we have a great American team, and we have a major MSL, the major soccer league right now, which has 19 teams, 16 in this country, 3 in Canada, they're getting bigger and bigger crowds. So it's growing. I think we've turned the corner on soccer. I hope we have. And you know what? It's not like you have to love baseball or basketball or football any less.
Right.
You just have to love soccer more. Yeah. Right. We're just adding soccer to the list of popular sports in this country.
It is funny because that first real surge of kids today are playing soccer. Those kids grew up in late 70s, 80s, right? So they're all now parents, you know, of kids who are playing soccer. They've grown up around soccer being a more well-known sport. So I can see it catching on. I do think that a lot of this has to do with just the spectacle of the World Cup. I think it's hard for a lot of these people to actually seek out and watch more soccer after it's over. But I think that certainly it's more popular now than it ever has been.
Yeah. I'm motivated to go to I've never been to a DC United soccer game.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, next season. All right, there you go. How about you? Getting excited about the World Cup? Excited about soccer? It's about time, don't you think? 866-55-PRESS. The tipping point on soccer this World Cup. Will it work? Let's talk about it here on the Bill Press Show Monday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory? Did you take a chance?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Talking World Cup here 26 minutes after the hour. Yeah, the other thing, Peter, that I really loved about watching the game last night is the camera shots and the close-up of the faces of the players.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you see a lot more of them because they don't have those helmets on and everything, right, and all that gear, either football or baseball.
Right.
But the expressions on their faces are so powerful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when something goes right or something goes wrong. I mean, it was incredible close-ups. It was almost like watching a feature-length movie, you know? They got really right in there. You could read in their faces. What do you got on comments?
We're on Twitter at BP Show. At BP Show, Warren says, contrary to American exceptionalism, majority of the world plays football, not American football or baseball or basketball.
Yes.
So there you go.
Right. And we're the only country that calls it soccer. Right. And you're right. You said that earlier. Maybe if we change the name.
We'd
sure. Think more about it. Jan is out in Chicago. Hi, Jan. Good morning.
Hi, Bill. I'm not a big sports fan, but I am recently since the Blackhawks have been doing so good. I'm loving hockey now.
Yeah, right. Even hockey, yes.
I'm loving it. But, you know, this soccer, I surely hope that could catch on here because I hate hearing and seeing and reading about all these traumatic brain injuries that these football players have suffered and you know, carries on through life, like our dear Jim McMahon, and now he's got that horrible situation where he's so depressed he can't leave the house. And, you know, it's heartbreaking what our football does to our... And we're doing it to kids in high school and college, so their lives can be ruined at a very early age. They don't even make it to the pros to make the millions of dollars where they could afford good medical care. But who cares? You don't want medical care. You want a good life, I would think. So that's my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I did remark that last night. I mean, if unless I'm wrong, Peter, I mean, I didn't see any protective gear at all that these players...
Shin guards.
That's it.
But that was about it, right?
Yeah,
certainly no helmets.
No.
You know, no body armor or whatever, you know, padding like that or anything. No, they're just out there and they are fast and they are good. Justin Sink from the White House coming up next.
Is the Bill Press Show.
You should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Or you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov. If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years. I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything.
Why are you asking me that?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Monday, June 23rd, 33 minutes after the hour. How about it? The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their colorful, articulate president, Leo Gerard, the one and only, leading the United Steelworkers, North America's largest industrial union, representing 1.2 million active and retired members. Active on many fronts, not just restoring and bringing back America's steel industry. And you can find out more about their good work at their website, usw.org. President Obama joining Vice President Joe Biden, the First Lady Michelle Obama, and I don't know whether we call her the second lady or not, but Dr. Jill Biden, all four appearing at the White House Summit on Working Families today. Another busy day at the White House keeps people like Justin Sink rightfully employed and busy keeping up with the flow of things. Justin Sink covers the White House for The Hill newspaper, thehill.com. Hey, Justin, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad that you're here. So before we get to more of the news of the day, a little milestone of sorts. Josh Earnest today giving his first briefing as officially the new press secretary.
Yeah, it'll be President Obama's third press secretary, and Josh has been the deputy to Jay Carney, who was the outgoing press secretary for many years, and so
3 years just about, I think. Huh? Yeah,
maybe even more. So a nice change of pace, maybe, and mix things up. And
Josh has filled in and done a good job filling in from time to time, often on trips. It was Josh who did the trips and not Jay Carney. And since Jay announced his retirement a couple of weeks ago, it's been sort of, okay, which one is really in charge, right?
Exactly.
The last few days, last week, Josh would give the briefing, but it was always still deputy press secretary.
Right. Jay was lingering in the back, packing up the stuff in his office, putting those boxes together. But yeah, Josh is now in charge, and it'll be interesting to see. He certainly came in at what'll be a very changing time in the presidency, a shift as attention starts to focus on both the midterms and the next presidential election, as all these foreign policy challenges are kind of bubbling up. And so
and it's hardly going to be a glide on the way out. I mean, they've got some real challenges ahead.
Exactly. And for this White House, which has said, repeatedly, they have a lot that they want to accomplish in the last couple of years, especially through regulation and through executive action. I think they'll be fighting and scrapping for headlines and attention, and to stave off the sort of controversies and lame duck status that dog, the end of presidencies.
Do we have any idea where Jay Carney is going to land next?
Well, it's interesting. Last week there was a brunch with him, and he was asked about writing a book, and he surprisingly seemed very disinclined to write a book. He said, writing is not the way that I relax, even though he used to be a fellow journalist in the White House press corps, and said he had taken notes, but it didn't really seem like the book path was there. We know the Washington Post reported that CNN has offered him a big chunk of money, so he might.
What, as a commentator?
Unclear as a commentator or a host. He certainly has experience in front of the camera, but talking to him the last couple of weeks, it seems like his big focus right now is his kids are home over the summer, and he hasn't really gotten to see a lot of them over the last few years, and so I think it's going to be a couple months before we see him make any big decision.
Let me tell you, his big focus, there's no doubt, his big focus will be making money.
There's no doubt that there's going to be some cash in it at some point.
It'll be making a lot of money.
Yes.
Probably more than what CNN would be willing to pay him. That would be just my guess. But we'll see what happens there. In terms of, as you said, there are projects and things that this administration wants to get done in the next 2.5 years. One of them, maybe top of the list, is immigration reform. You have written that the White House sees some hope. Of course, the president ran hope and change. See some hope in the election of Kevin McCarthy as the new majority leader, that might open the door a little bit on immigration reform. How so?
Well, it was this interesting moment. Valerie Jarrett, who's this top advisor to President Obama, they're very close, was asked about her reaction to Eric Cantor's loss and Kevin McCarthy's ascension to majority leader, and she said that the White House saw this as a moment of opportunity, that in discussions with House Republicans previously, they had said that they wanted to get through primary season. Now primary season is over, and so they are kind of cautiously optimistic that they might see some movement in the House. That really flies in the face of conventional wisdom, both in that House Republicans have shown absolutely no willingness to move on this for the last year since the Senate bill passed, and because Eric Cantor lost, because at least in part, his primary opponent made his stance on immigration a central issue. And Eric Cantor, just to be clear, was against almost the entirety of President Obama's immigration plan. There was just a very narrow slice.
Yeah.
Extending a possible pathway to citizenship for children who were brought here illegally.
The so-called DREAM Act.
Exactly.
Yeah, he said he'd be open to talking about it, basically. And I didn't even say he would support it, but he'd be willing to consider it.
Right. And just that was enough to sort of become the central issue in this Tea Party campaign. And, that said, while Eric Cantor has lost his job, Republicans did replace him with Kevin McCarthy, who has not been an ideologue on this issue, has not really come out strongly against immigration reform, comes from a California district where there's a large Hispanic population and certainly lots of support for immigration reform. And this is something that Josh Earnest mentioned on Friday, that, there's potential common ground there. And so I don't know how much stock to put in this optimism from the White House, but they don't seem, or they've said repeatedly that they don't see Eric Cantor's loss as kind of a death knell for immigration reform.
Well, the United Farm Workers have launched a campaign and directed at Kevin McCarthy. This is prime territory for them too. A lot of vineyards in this area in the Central Valley, his district. The headquarters of the United Farm Workers, Delano, is in his district. But there is so yes, it is an opportunity. Yes, he's from California, but there has been nothing and no, he has not been an outspoken opponent of immigration reform, but he has never been an outspoken supporter of it either, right? I mean, there's nothing in his past to indicate, and he's been part of the Republican leadership, nothing in his past to indicate that he would be bold enough or interested enough or maybe even foolish enough to take the lead on immigration reform.
Well, I think the thing for Republicans...
I don't know. So I don't know what this optimism is based on.
I guess the only sort of path, and trust me, I'm extremely suspect of any movement from House Republicans on this issue, but Kevin McCarthy is in many ways an establishment Republican leader, and unlike some members of the Tea Party who are more sort of anarchic in their approach to governance, I think he does see the Republican Party path forward for them, and it is very difficult to imagine Republicans remaining viable in 2016 on a presidential campaign in some of these purple, states where they don't have to contest it this year, but they will in coming years. There are smart Republicans here in Washington who know that at some point they're going to have to bite the bullet on immigration reform if they want to stay viable. And so it's possible just by the mere fact that he was the one who won leadership rather than some of the Tea Party challengers that were being floated out there, that at some point he, John Boehner, other Republicans are going to say, guys, we've just got to bring this to the floor. We've got to do it. We've got to seize the opportunity. I wouldn't put any money on that. I wouldn't bank on it, but it seems like the only kind of possible route for immigration reform to come through.
When pigs fly. That's my take on that. He's been, if you look at Kevin McCarthy's past as a state legislator in California, and so far his record in Congress, he has never been one to take any risk or never been one to stand out there, and he's basically known for being a guy who can get things done just by being, glad-handing. He brings people together. Everybody kind of likes him, but he's never known as a policy leader, never a policy wonk at all.
And that mirrors John Boehner in a lot of extents. I mean, John Boehner is very well liked, within the Republican caucus on a personal level and sort of an establishment figure that's well known around town, but he survived in this really chaotic Republican caucus by not offering a lot of policy prescriptions, by sort of letting events dictate themselves and making the core stance of the party sort of opposition to what the president's doing. And so you've seen this actually on a number of issues recently, from Iraq to immigration. It's not, you don't see John Boehner offering his sort of alternative. You just see him saying, well, here's the problems with the approach that the president has taken.
Of course. And immigration reform, for the moment at any rate, is getting no attention at all because most of the focus, the president's time, is on Iraq and what's the situation there. That next for with Justin Sink here, and with your calls and your comments, always welcome, on the Bill Press Show this Monday morning. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Presents Fan.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour, Monday morning, June 23rd. The Hill, you want to know what's happening in Washington, either end of Pennsylvania Avenue at the Congress or down at the White House. Check out The Hill, thehill.com. Justin Sink covers the White House for The Hill, and as you know, I write a column for The Hill every Tuesday, so sort of part of the team here. In a full disclosure, but I was a big fan of The Hill even before I started writing a column for them. So Justin, the president, played golf over the weekend. Not unusual, and part of the reason I think he wants to at least give the impression that it's business as usual around the White House, no real crisis. I mean, At the same time, they're pretty overwhelmed with Iraq right now.
Yeah, I mean, this situation is just kind of worsening by the day. We saw Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad this morning. And he's going to try to broker some sort of political solution between, the Sunnis, the Shiites, the Kurds, who are all sort of going after each other right now. The ISIS, which is the sort of Sunni Al-Qaeda affiliated terror group, over the weekend sees some border crossings and some additional
grab some more territory. They just keep rolling on.
And so, it's sort of an amazing crisis. It was interesting, actually. The president did a series of interviews to preview the Working Family Summit, and so those aired this morning. But, of course, there were a lot of questions on Iraq. And it was really striking to see him kind of say time and again that no matter what, Iraqis were going to have to find a political solution to this crisis, because he did not envision the United States to be able to sort this out militarily. It's certainly a big break from what we've heard in the past, but puts him in a tough situation politically, because as he's trying to kind of foster and push Iraqi leaders into some sort of conciliatory governance. ISIS is just kind of on this rampage, and it's leading to a lot of bad headlines and scary pictures on
You
TV.
and I were both there in the briefing room Thursday when the president came in and announced out of his meeting in the Situation Room and said, okay, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're not going to do. And we know what he announced: up to 300 military advisors, no ground troops on the ground, open door to the possibility of more additional military action, meaning airstrikes if deemed necessary. I thought it was remarkable watching him that his body language was, boy, this is the last freaking thing I want to do.
Well,
Did you get that same impression?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was elected because he wanted because from the beginning he was sort of in opposition to the Iraq War and thought it was a bad idea to get in there. And, certainly the argument that's raging through Washington right now is, whether this current division is the result of just having gone in the first place or the U.S. having withdrawn troops. His hands were sort of tied on that front because the Iraqis refused to...
They refused to allow our troops in there without legal protection. Yeah.
Past 2011. And so for the administration, now that said, of course, President Obama celebrated that pullout. So it's not as if, he was really opposed to doing it either.
No.
But
and the American people celebrated that pullout.
Yeah. But what we're seeing now is sort of the reemergence of some of these tough sectarian differences that have really existed for, they've existed for centuries. But certainly within these borders for 100 years since they were kind of drawn up by some Europeans after.
What must make it particularly difficult for the president and his team to in dealing with the situation in Iraq is that by the end of the year we're going to be out of Afghanistan.
That's the other thing. It was interesting. He was asked specifically about this in his interview with Mika Brzezinski on MSNBC, and she asked, does this change your plan for Afghanistan? And what he said was, no, we're still going to play it by the book, or play it by the plan that we had developed, and that led to the inevitable follow-up question, well, couldn't the same thing happen in Afghanistan that did in Iraq? And what the president said, which was sort of remarkable, was, yeah, it's possible that this same thing could happen, but ultimately we can't afford to be in countries in perpetuity, and so at some point it's going to be up to the Afghanis to secure their own future. And there are risks to that strategy, undoubtedly, but it's a very interesting and different kind of turn from especially what we've seen under President Clinton and definitely under President Bush.
It's pretty clear that President Bush and Dick Cheney, when they started the war in Afghanistan and when they started the war in Iraq, had no idea about what would happen at the end of them. None. Well, nor did they give it, I believe, any thought. And maybe I shouldn't have done that because with that point, we got to hold it right there. Justin, I'll see you a little later at the White House today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and thanks so much for coming in and all your good work there at The Hill. TheHill.com. I'll be back with today's quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
But we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, I don't know whether you saw it yesterday. It was a wonderful photo on the front page of the New York Times of a woman sitting at her kitchen table with a can of beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. You reminded me of my grandmother, who smoked Camels and drank Budweiser until she died at the ripe old age of 103. The woman in this photo looked very, very relaxed, and there was only one thing wrong. You couldn't tell unless you read the caption, but she was dead too. That was her wake, but this is the way her family wanted to remember her, not lying in a coffin, but sitting at a table, talking to her friends, a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other. And she's not the first. Other so-called real-life wakes included a driver of an EMT driver sitting at the wheel of his ambulance. Now, you know what? I don't know about you, but I think this is a great idea. It's certainly better than lying there in a coffin with a rosary wrapped around your fingers. So my request is, when I go, just prop me up right here in this chair in front of this microphone. I'll even put on my headphones for that.
Is the Bill
See you tomorrow
Press
morning.
Show.